Mga ka-Serene, may kwento tayo ngayon na siguradong magpapaisip sa inyo. Isang gabi, isang lalaki at isang desisyonang nagwasak sa ating sender. Paano ba nangyari na si Negro ang nakakuha ng puso at siya din ba ang nakakuha ng pagkababae niya? Hindi ba't may mga pagkakataong may mga tukso na hindi natin kayang iwasan? Kaya, sabay-sabay nating pakinggan ang kwentong ito at malaman kung paano nauwi sa isang hindi inaasahang pangyayari. Don't forget to like and subscribe para sa mga update story natin. Magandang araw, DJ Serene. Gusto ko lang sana mag-share ng kwento na hindi ko pa rin matanggap hanggang ngayon. I never imagined that one night, one person could change the whole course of my life. Hindi ko na kayang itago pa, malaki siya mga ka-Serene. I was just an ordinary girl, DJ Serene, na madalas na pumupunta sa mga bar with my friends para mag-enjoy. That night, we were celebrating a friend's birthday sa isang sikat na bar sa Makati. Wala akong inaasahan na special na mangyayari. In fact, it was just another regular night out. Pero siguro, minsan, pag wala kang expectations, doon talaga nangyayari yung mga hindi mo inaasahan. As we were drinking and dancing, I suddenly noticed him. Nasa kabilang table siya, medyo malayo. Pero may kung anong nakatulong sa aking mga mata na siya na lang ang nakikita ko. His presence was magnetic, parang may naguudyok sa aking maglakad patungo sa kanya. He was tall, dark, and foreign, with this mysterious aura na hindi ko maintindihan. Hindi siya yung tipong guy na agad magpapansin, pero may something sa kanya na talagang nakakapit sa aking mga mata. At that moment, DJ Serene, I felt this pull I couldn't explain. Parang may something in the air that made everything feel electric. Hindi ko alam kung bakit, pero parang isang magnetic force na gusto kong sundan. Tapos, hindi ko alam kung anong nangyari, bigla ko na lang siya nilapitan. It was so random, but when I walked up to his table, I felt this rush of adrenaline. "Excuse me, do you have a drink for me?" I said with a flirtatious smile. At that very moment, I felt myself doing something I've never done before. He looked up at me, and for a split second, everything stopped. Tumingin siya sa aking mga mata, and I could feel him studying me. Then he smiled, a slow, confident smile, at parang may spark na nag-flash sa kanyang mga mata. "I think you're asking for more than just a drink," he replied. And I could tell by his voice, his tone, na may something else na parang hindi lang basta small talk. It felt so natural. Sobrang relaxed niya. And for some reason, hindi ako natakot. I smiled back and said, "Maybe, but I could use something to ease the night." He laughed softly and motioned for the bartender to get us another round. As he handed me my glass, our fingers brushed, and the electricity was undeniable. I felt a jolt of something I hadn't felt in a long time. This sense of being wanted, of being noticed. It was something that made me feel alive, something that awakened a side of me na hindi ko pa talaga nakikilala. We started talking, DJ Serene, and the conversation just flowed. Ang saya lang, parang walang pressure. He was so charming, so different from anyone I had ever met. I found myself laughing at his jokes, hanging on to his every word. His accent was sexy, and there was something about him that felt so familiar. He wasn't just a foreigner, he was someone who was real. Alam mo, yun, DJ Serene, may aura siyang hindi mo kayang i-ignore. As the night went on, we started getting closer, physically and emotionally. Ang katawan ko, ramdam ko na parang may attraction na hindi ko kayang i-resist. The more we talked, the closer we got. His hand would occasionally brush mine, and I could feel his eyes lingering a little longer than usual. And I won't lie, I loved it. I was already feeling things I hadn't felt in a long time. Then, before I knew it, he leaned in closer, his breath warm on my ear, and whispered, "Why don't we take this somewhere else?" His words were soft but direct, and they sent a wave of heat through my body. I felt my heart race, but at the same time, I didn't want to pull away. I felt alive. Without even thinking, I nodded. Hindi ko na kayang magpigil. Parang may parte sa aking katawan na nagsasabing, "Go for it." I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I was just feeling everything in that moment. And before long, we were heading out of the bar together. It wasn't just about the physical attraction, DJ Serene. It was the way he made me feel, like I was the only one in the room. It was the way his touch lingered a little too long, the way his smile made me forget everything. I was swept up in the excitement, in the feeling of being desired, of being seen in a way I never had before. DJ. Serene, hindi ko alam kung paano ko sisimulan. Lahat ng nangyari nung gabing iyon, parang isang mabilis na agos na hindi ko na kayang pigilan. Matapos kaming maglakad palabas ng bar, hindi ko na kayang mag-isip ng maayos. Para bang isang lakas na hindi ko kayang labanan ang humila sa akin patungo sa kanya. Alam ko masyado akong lasing, pero yung nararamdaman ko, it was something I couldn't deny. Nung pumasok kami sa kwarto ng hotel, naramdaman ko ang bigat ng hangin sa paligid namin. I could feel the tension between us. Sobrang init, sobrang malakas. Parang may isang bagay na nagsasabing, wala nang atrasan, kailangan mong magpatuloy. Habang ang mga mata niya ay tinitigan ako, hindi ko na kayang pigilan ang sarili ko. Ang mga kamay niyang dahan-dahang humaplos sa katawan ko, ang bawat galaw, bawat hawak, para bang tinutukso ako. Wala akong pakialam kung ano ang magiging kahihinatnan. Lahat ng nararamdaman ko, nag-uumpisa ng maging matinding kagustuhan. "Ang ganda mo," he whispered softly sa aking tenga, at parang kuryente ang dumaloy sa katawan ko. Hindi ko alam kung anong nangyari, pero ang katawan ko na lang ang gumagawa ng desisyon ko. Habang siya ay bumaba at dumampi ang mga labi niya sa aking balat. Bawat halik, bawat galaw ng kanyang mga kamay, dumadaloy sa katawan ko ang init. Walang kalaban-laban, DJ Serene. Parang natutunaw ako sa bawat galaw ng katawan niya. "Stop me if you want to," he whispered again. Pero ako, hindi ko na siya pinigilan. Gusto ko siya, gusto kong madama ang bawat parte ng katawan ko na sumasabay sa kanya. Hindi ko na kayang pigilan ang sarili ko. And then, he undressed me slowly. At that moment, hindi ko na kayang i-resist pa ang lahat ng nararamdaman ko. Para bang isang tinig sa aking puso ang nagsasabing, "Ito na." As he kissed me again, this time deeper, I let myself lose control. Hindi ko na inisip kung anong mangyayari pagkatapos, basta't ang alam ko, I wanted to feel every second of it. Nung tumigil siya at sinimulan niyang galugarin ang bawat parte ng katawan ko, I couldn't help but gasp. Ang init ng kanyang mga labi, ang galak na dumarampi sa bawat bahagi ng katawan ko. Ang bawat paghaplos, bawat pagdampi ng kanyang kamay, ay may kasamang pagnanasa na hindi ko kayang ipaliwanag. Nung unti-unting dumampi ang katawan niya sa akin, I could feel him inside me. It was a feeling so intense it made me gasp for air. It was a mixture of pleasure and pain. But more than anything. It felt like I was being consumed by the moment. Lahat ng katawan ko ay gumagalaw kasabay ng ritmo namin. It felt so good. Too good. It was like we were in sync, our bodies moving as one, each thrust bringing me closer to the edge. As he moved deeper, I closed my eyes, feeling every inch of him. I didn't care about anything else kahit malaki. DJ Serene. Ang katawan ko lang ang umiiral. Yung mga sensasyon, yung init, yung mga puwersang nararamdaman ko, hindi ko na kayang itago. Every second felt like an eternity, and yet I didn't want it to end. I could feel myself getting closer, the pressure building inside me, hanggang sa hindi ko na kayang pigilin pa. I let go. At nung narating ko yung rurok ng sensasyon, naramdaman ko na parang ang mundo ko ay tumigil, yung katawan ko parang naglaho na. I felt everything all at once. Nung tumigil kami at pareho kaming humihingal, lahat ng nararamdaman ko ay parang isang matinding paghihirap na hindi ko kayang ipaliwanag. I had given myself to him, at ang tanong na lang, DJ Serene, ay kung anong ibig sabihin nun para sa akin. I felt empty and full at the same time. There was satisfaction, but at the same time, confusion. Wala akong ibang nararamdaman kundi ang kabiguan at ang saya. Ngunit pagkatapos ng lahat ng iyon, hindi ko pa rin matanggap kung anong nangyari. Ang katawan ko ay puno ng sensasyon, pero ang puso ko ay puno ng tanong. DJ Serene, ang gabing yun, parang hindi ko pa rin matanggap. After everything that happened, para bang nagising ako mula sa isang masarap na panaginip. Pero nang tumingin ako sa kanya, dun ko na lamang natanong ang sarili ko. Ano ba talaga tayo? Nung tumayo siya at nagpunta, sa banyo naiwan akong nakahiga sa kama. Ang katawan ko ay puno pa ng mga sensasyon mula sa kanya, pero ang utak ko puno ng tanong. Parang naguguluhan ako sa nangyari. Was it just a moment of passion? Or was there something deeper between us? Habang naghuhugas siya sa banyo, nag-isip ako. Hindi ko maiwasang balikan ang bawat sandali na nakasama ko siya. Yung mga titig niya, yung mga halik na bumabalot sa katawan ko, at yung mga sensasyon na parang hindi ko kayang ipaliwanag. Para bang tinanggal niya sa akin ang lahat ng takot ko. Pero ngayon, parang ako naman yung natatakot na magising sa realidad. Narinig ko siya na lumabas ng banyo. When he walked back to the bed, I turned to face him. The silence between us was thick, and it felt like everything was about to change. Wag mong isipin na, he began, his voice soft as if trying to reassure me. Ano? Tanong ko, at hindi ko pa rin alam kung paano mag-react. Hindi ko naman gustong gawing magulo ang lahat. Hindi ko gusto na ikaw ang mag-isip na ginamit kita. Hindi ko siya sinagot. Instead, I just stared at him, trying to understand. I wanted to say something, but I wasn't sure what. All I could think of was how I had given myself completely, at paano ko ngayon hahanapin ang aking sariling pagkatao pagkatapos ng lahat ng nangyari. It wasn't just the physical pleasure that lingered. It was how he made me feel, like I was the only one in the world for him in that moment. But I didn't know if it was real, or if it was just an illusion. Was it really love, or just lust, disguised as something deeper? He kissed me on the forehead, and for a moment it felt like we were still in a dream, a place where nothing could hurt us. Pero nang magtama ang mga mata namin, I saw it in his eyes. There was something more, something he wasn't saying. I could feel the tension between us. I was scared to ask, scared of what the answer would be. Gusto ko sanang magpaliwanag, pero siguro, hindi ko pa rin alam kung anong nangyari, he said, trailing off. I nodded, unsure of how to respond. Hindi ko kayang sabihin kung ano ang nararamdaman ko. Naguguluhan ako, pero at the same time, I wanted to understand him. I wanted to know where this was going, kung may patutunguhan pa ba kami pagkatapos ng gabing iyon. Habang nakahiga kami, naramdaman ko yung bigat ng katahimikan. What do we do now? Gusto kong magtanong, pero parang ayokong magsalita. Gusto ko lang maramdaman kung anong magiging reaksyon niya, kung paano siya magpapakita ng pagmamahal, o kung magiging maligaya lang siya sa gabing iyon. Pero habang nagsasama kami sa kama, naramdaman ko ang isang piraso ng takot na hindi ko kayang iwaksi. Takot na baka akala niya ang lahat ng ito ay walang halaga. Takot na baka walang lugar ang pagmamahal sa kung anuman ang meron kami. Huwag mong isipin na hindi ako seryoso, he said, his voice tinged with sincerity. Kung magulo ang isip mo, at ako din, pero gusto ko pa rin malaman kung anong nararamdaman mo, hindi kita bibiguin. I closed my eyes trying to process everything he was saying. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief, excitement, fear, and hope. But I wasn't ready to admit it yet. Hindi ko pa kayang harapin ang mga nararamdaman ko. Hindi ko pa kayang tanggapin na baka mayroon nga akong nararamdaman para sa kanya. And that night, we didn't say anything else. We just lay there, silently holding each other. But I knew that things between us had changed. The connection was undeniable, but so were the questions. What would happen tomorrow? Was this just a moment? Or was it something more? It felt like a chapter in my life had closed, but I wasn't sure if it was the end of the story. The emotions were so raw, so real, but the uncertainty still lingered in the air, filling the room. We both knew it wasn't over. The next day would bring more answers, or maybe even more confusion. But one thing was for sure, DJ Serene. That night, my life would never be the same again. DJ Serene, hindi ko alam kung paano ko sasabihin, pero ramdam ko na may mga bagay na hindi pa namin nasasabi sa isa't isa. The morning after was quiet, almost awkward, at least for me. Habang kami ay nagkakasama, may nararamdaman akong distansya. Yung mga mata niya parang may tinatago. Hindi ko na alam kung ano pa ang pwedeng mangyari sa amin. After what happened, hindi ko alam kung anong nangyari. I was trying to convince myself na baka it's just another fling, something that happened, because we were both caught up in the moment. But deep down, alam ko na may iba. There was something more. Nung magkasama kami sa kusina, habang nagme-make coffee, hindi ko kayang titigan siya ng diretso. Ang mga mata ko hindi kayang magtagpo sa kanya. Naramdaman ko na parang may mga piraso ng sarili ko na nawala. Piraso ng puso ko na naiwan sa kanya. I could still feel the warmth of his touch, the way he kissed me, but it felt like a distant memory now. Can we talk? He finally broke the silence. His voice was soft, a little hesitant, pero naramdaman ko ang bigat sa tono niya. Nung humarap ako, nakita ko yung kabuntot na nag-aalalang mata. Gusto ko sanang malaman kung anong nararamdaman ko, but I don't know how to say it. About last night, he started, but I cut him off. Is it okay if we don't talk about it? I said, my voice almost a whisper. He nodded, though his eyes looked like they were searching for something in mine. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi ko pa kayang harapin ang nangyari. Hindi ko kayang aminin na parte ng katawan ko ang nagdesisyon at hindi ang utak ko. Ang katawan ko ay nagsabing oo, pero ang puso ko hindi ko pa rin maintindihan. We spent the rest of the morning in an uncomfortable silence. He went to take a shower, and I just stayed there, sitting on the couch, thinking about what we had shared. Hindi ko kayang tanggalin sa isip ko yung init na naramdaman ko. Pero sa parehong oras, meron ding takot. Takot na baka nagkamali ako. Takot na baka hindi siya seryoso, at baka ang lahat ng ito ay hindi na masusundan. Habang ang araw ay lumilipas, nagsimula akong mag-isip kung anong nangyari sa akin. Bakit nga ba ako ganito? I thought. I couldn't help but feel confused, lost in my emotions. He was a foreigner, someone who had a life that was so different from mine. And though we shared a night that felt unforgettable, there was a deep part of me that was unsure about the future. Hindi ko alam kung gusto ko bang ipagpatuloy ang lahat ng ito, or if I should walk away before I got in too deep. That afternoon, he invited me out for lunch. Tumanggi ako, hindi ko siya kayang harapin ng ganun lang. Instead, I went for a walk by myself, hoping that it would clear my head. It was a long walk, and the streets of the city felt empty as I walked through them, lost in thought. I found myself at a small park, sitting alone by the fountain, trying to make sense of everything that was going through my mind. I could hear the soft sound of water splashing against the stone and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Bakit ako natatakot? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just the physical part of our encounter that haunted me. It was the way he made me feel, alive, wanted, seen. He made me feel like I was important, and that scared me. I didn't want to get caught up in something that could end badly. But on the other hand, I couldn't ignore the connection we had. It was real. At least, I hoped it was. Later that day, he called me. His voice was soft, almost as if he was unsure how I would respond. "Are you okay?" he asked, his concern evident. "I'm fine," I replied, but my voice betrayed me. He knew I wasn't okay. I could hear the hesitation in his words when he spoke next. "I know we're both confused," he said, "but I want to figure this out with you, if you're open to it." That was the moment I had to face the truth. Did I want to move forward with him? That's when I realized the truth I had been hiding from myself. I didn't want to walk away from him. I didn't want to lose what we had, whatever it was. I wanted more, but at the same time, I knew I had to be careful. I couldn't just dive into this without knowing if he felt the same way. And even if he did, could it ever work? Could something so intense, so passionate, really turn into something lasting? I wasn't sure, but I was willing to find out. DJ. "Serene, hindi ko na kayang itago pa ang nararamdaman ko. It's like I'm caught between two forces, fear and desire. I knew I was walking a fine line between wanting more from him and protecting myself from being hurt. Sabi ko sa sarili ko, hindi ko dapat magpadala sa unang halakhak ng puso, especially if I wasn't sure if he felt the same. Pero kung susundin, ko naman ang takot ko, baka mawalan ako ng pagkakataon. It's like every time I looked into his eyes, there was a part of me that wanted to dive deeper into this, while another part of me wanted to run away. It wasn't just the physical connection that we shared, it was the way he made me feel. Important, special, wanted. I had never felt that way before, and it scared me. Our conversations were now more frequent. At first, we talked about casual things, pero pati ang mga malalim na bagay, unti-unti naming pinag-uusapan. He was different from the other people I've been with, not just in the way he acted, but in the way he made me feel. I can't deny it, Serene. Gusto ko siya. But at the same time, it felt like I was playing with fire. Paano kung sa huli ako lang ang maghihirap? Paano kung magkaiba kami ng mga priorities at hindi pala talaga kami bagay? But every time I told myself to back off, I found myself wanting him even more. One evening, we decided to go out. It was supposed to be casual, just dinner. Pero alam ko, sa mga mata niya, may hindi sinabi. We were sitting in a cozy cafe, a place where the lights were soft and the ambiance was intimate. As we talked, I couldn't help but feel the electricity between us, like we were on the verge of something, but neither of us was brave enough to fully cross that line. Alam mo, minsan iniisip ko kung magkaibang maganda tayo, he said, laughing a little, but there was something in his tone that was serious. You're different from the girls I've been with before. Different how? I asked, half joking, but I could sense the weight in his words. Because you don't. Just show me one side of you. You show me your flaws, your confusion. It's like you're not hiding anything. And that makes you more real. His words hit me harder than I expected. For a second, I didn't know how to react. I wanted to tell him that I was scared too, that I wasn't sure how to be this open with him. I wanted to tell him that I was afraid of getting hurt, that everything about this was moving too fast. Instead, I just nodded, pretending like everything was okay. Pero deep down, I was starting to realize na baka siya lang ang nagbigay sa akin ng pagkakataon na makita ang sarili ko sa ibang paraan. After dinner, we walked around the streets. He held my hand, and I didn't pull away. It felt right, even though there were still doubts swirling in my mind. He leaned in closer as we reached a quieter part of the street, the glow of the streetlights casting soft shadows on our faces. No, this might be sudden, but I feel like I need to be honest with you, he said quietly, his voice low. I've been thinking about you a lot since that night. I didn't expect to feel this way, but I like you. I stopped walking. His words caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it to come out like that. I thought maybe he was just saying it because it was the right thing to say, but the sincerity in his eyes told me otherwise. Gusto mo ba talaga ako? I asked softly, not knowing if I was ready to hear the answer. He took a step closer to me, his hand gently brushing against mine. Yes, he said, his voice steady. I like you, and I don't want to let this go without trying to make something real out of it. At that moment, everything around us seemed to fade away. It was just him and me, and the weight of his words sinking deep into my chest. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this could be more than just a fleeting moment. Something that could turn into something deeper, something real. But even with his words, I couldn't shake the fear inside me. I looked away, my emotions rushing to the surface. I'm scared, I admitted, barely above a whisper. I don't want to get hurt. He reached out and gently lifted my chin so that our eyes met. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but I'm willing to take the risk if you are. Felt a mix of emotions: relief, fear, excitement. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond to someone who was offering me everything with so little hesitation. But in that moment, all I could do was let go of the walls I had built around myself and let him in? Okay, I whispered. Let's try. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was making the right decision. I still didn't know where this was going, but I was willing to take that chance. I was ready to give him a piece of me, the real me, with all the fear, confusion, and excitement that came with it. As we walked hand in hand back to my place, I knew that something had shifted between us. We weren't just two people caught in a moment anymore. This was the start of something. And whatever it was, I wasn't going to let fear stop me from finding out. DJ Serene, eto na nga. Isang linggo na ang lumipas mula nung nagdesisyon kaming subukan ng kami ni Negro. Hindi ko alam kung saan kami patungo. Pero ang bawat araw, mas lalo kong nararamdaman na hindi ganun kadali ang lahat. Sure, we had our fun. At times, it felt like we were on top of the world. But there were moments of silence too. Those awkward pauses between us that I couldn't ignore. Minsan, naiisip ko kung ginawa ko ba ang tamang desisyon. I was starting to question myself. Hindi ko na alam kung ang iniisip ko ba ay ang takot o ang nararamdaman ko para sa kanya. I mean, hindi siya ang tipo ng lalaki na para sa akin. He was a foreigner, and it wasn't just about the cultural differences. It was everything. His world, his priorities, his lifestyle. I couldn't help but think, can we make this work long-term? Sabi ko sa sarili ko, baka kasi ito lang. Baka kami lang ang nagkakasunduan dahil pareho kaming nadala nung first time. Yung init ng katawan, yung rush. But then there were moments, small moments, when I looked at him and I couldn't deny the connection. Hindi lang siya isang night, isang fling. He was someone who, despite the differences, actually cared about me. But then, there were things I didn't expect. Like when he would go distant at times. Sometimes he'd pull away for no apparent reason, and that would leave me feeling insecure. His calls would get shorter, and his texts less frequent. I tried to brush it off at first, telling myself, maybe he's just busy. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't always the case. One night, habang nag-uusap kami, he suddenly went quiet. After I shared something personal about my family. Alam mo yung biglang may wall na pumagitna sa inyo? Ganun. He stopped smiling. His voice lost its usual warmth. It was like he was trying to hide something, and that made me feel even more anxious. I'm sorry, he said, breaking the silence. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. What do you mean? I asked, trying to stay calm, even though I could feel the tension building between us. He sighed deeply, his gaze shifting to the floor. I guess I don't really know how to handle things like this. His honesty hit me. I've never been in a serious relationship like this before. I don't know if I'm ready for something long-term. At that moment, it was like my heart stopped beating for a second. Hindi ko alam kung anong nararamdaman ko. Part of me wanted to say na it's fine, kasi naiintindihan ko naman siya, and maybe, just maybe, it was too soon for both of us. But the other part of me wanted to scream, but you said you liked me. You said we could try. It felt like he was pulling away from me, just as I was starting to let myself fall for him. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. What does that mean for us? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, and I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. I don't know. I care about you, Pero. I'm scared too. I'm scared of messing this up. And that was it. We both sat there in silence, neither of us knowing how to move forward. It was hard because we both had our walls up, not wanting to get hurt but not wanting to let go either. The next few days felt strange. It was like we were both in this limbo, neither really committed nor completely distant. I would see him, and we would talk, but there was always something unspoken between us. It wasn't the same as before, and I didn't know if we were just going through a rough patch or if this was the end. One evening, I decided to confront him. "Are we going to talk about this or not?" I asked him when we met at his place. He had been distant all week, and I was tired of the silence. He looked at me for a long time, and then finally spoke. "I think we need to slow down, girl's name. Maybe we're rushing into something without really knowing what we want. Is that your way of saying you want to end this?" I asked, feeling my heart sink. "No," he said, shaking his head. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to get too attached if I'm not sure where I stand yet. Hurt me? Did he think I didn't care about him enough to hurt too? But I didn't say that. I just nodded slowly, taking it all in. "So what do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," he replied, his voice soft, almost defeated. "But I don't want to lose what we have. Not yet." In that moment, it felt like a breakthrough of sorts. Hindi pa kami magkasama, pero alam kong hindi pa rin kami tapos. We were just taking things one step at a time, trying to figure it out. And though the future seemed uncertain, I found myself holding on to a small hope that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. DJ Serene, hindi ko alam kung paano ko ipaliwanag, pero masakit. Parang may pira-pirasong parte ng puso ko na naiwan sa mga sandaling yon. Yung mga gabi na nagsusumbatan kami sa mga bagay na hindi namin naisip, mga pangarap na magkaiba, mga takot na hindi natin kayang iparating sa isa't isa. Minsan iniisip ko kung naging mali ba ako sa pagpili. Pero hindi ko na pwedeng ibalik ang oras. Nang bumalik kami sa normal na buhay, ang mga tingin ko sa kanya, hindi na yung tingin ng pagkasaya, kundi ng kabiguan. Pero hindi ko matanggihan na may hinahanap akong sagot. Hindi ko pa kayang mawala siya at alam ko hindi pa rin siya ready na mawala ako. Kaya naman, isang linggo ang lumipas at nagdesisyon akong kausapin siya ng seryoso. Hindi na pwedeng magtago, pa nag-set kami ng meeting sa isang cafe na malapit lang sa lugar namin kung saan hindi kami mabilis makikitaan. Walang mga alalahanin, walang mga distractions. Sa tingin ko, ito na ang pagkakataon. We both knew we had to confront our feelings, no matter how difficult it was. Hindi na pwedeng laging nagtatago sa mga pangako at hindi tapos na usapan. Habang nagkakape kami, hindi ko maiwasang tignan ang mga mata niyang puno ng pagsisisi. Sa mga araw na hindi kami nag-usap, parang nag-iba siya. Hindi ko alam kung may kasalanan ba ako o kung siya ba talaga ang hindi handa sa ganoong klaseng commitment. Ang tagal nating hindi nag-usap, di ba? Tanong ko sa kanya, pilit na binabawi ang mga kabiguan. Bakit? Ano bang nangyari? Ano ba ang gusto mo? Sumabog. Sa kanya ang lahat ng hindi nasabi. Ang hirap kasi, girl's name, sabi niya. Ang tinig niya na parang may kabigatan. Minsan, ang mga nararamdaman ko parang hindi ko kayang ipaliwanag. Ayokong bigyan kita ng mga promises na hindi ko matutupad. Ano bang ibig mong sabihin? Ano ba ang problema? Kung ayaw mo, sabihin mo. Kung hindi mo na kaya, okay lang. Sagot ko na puno ng takot at galit. Kasi hindi ko na alam kung paano itago pa ang mga nararamdaman ko. Hindi ko rin alam kung paano ipaliwanag, sagot ko. Ang tinig ko nagiging malumanay na. I don't know if I can keep doing this, being so afraid all the time. Na baka ako lang yung nagmamahal. Baka nga yun lang. Yung walang kasiguraduhan. In that moment, I realized something. He wasn't just afraid of losing me, but he was also afraid of not being able to give me what I needed. We were both so scared of the future, so afraid of getting hurt that we were missing the chance to really make it work. I don't know if this is the right time, I continued, but we need to be honest. I care about you. I'm not going to say na I love you because it's too soon, but I want to try, no matter how messy it gets. Wala namang tamang timing, di ba? Kung palaging hinihintay yung perfect na pagkakataon, hindi natin makikita kung anong meron sa atin. He smiled faintly, a sad but sincere expression. I don't want to let this go. I care about you too. And maybe this is the start of us figuring things out together. I nodded, and for the first time in a while, I felt a spark of hope. We weren't perfect, and we didn't have all the answers, but we were willing to try. That meant everything. To me. In the next few weeks, things didn't magically become easier, but we kept trying. We learned to communicate more openly, to stop hiding our fears and doubts from each other. There were still moments of tension, of silence, but we began to understand each other more. We were slowly creating our own space, learning how to coexist with the messiness of life and love. One evening, while we were walking under the soft glow of streetlights, he stopped and took my hand in his. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm willing to take that journey with you. Are you with me? I looked up at him, my heart racing as I nodded. Yes. And for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, this was going to be the real thing. DJ Serene, sa lahat ng nangyari, sa lahat ng pagkatalo at tagumpay, parang kami pa rin ni Negro ang pinakanatatanging kwento ko sa buhay ko. Hindi ko pa rin kayang ipaliwanag ang lahat ng nararamdaman ko. I guess the longer we were together, the more I realized how complicated love can be. Hindi ito simpleng kwento ng paghahanap ng perfect love or happy ending. Love, at least for us, was about learning to accept the parts of each other that we were afraid of and still trying to make it work. Minsan naiisip ko kung tama pa ba yung ginagawa namin. Do we really have a future? Ang daming mga pagsubok, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. Pero may isang bagay na hindi ko matanggihan. He never gave up. And for someone like me, that meant everything. Kasi kung gaano ako katatakot, magmamahal, ganoon din siya. Natatakot din siya, at ang iniisip niya, baka hindi niya magampanan ang lahat ng expectations ko. At itong chapter ng buhay namin, hindi lang about us, kundi pati na rin sa mga biglaang pagsubok. Things had been going well, but everything was about to change. Yung mga tanong na hindi namin kayang sagutin ay finally bumangon. Ang hirap tanggapin na ang mga tanong na ito ay hindi lang para sa kami, kundi pati na rin sa pamilya ko at mga kaibigan ko. Isang linggo na lang bago ang graduation ko at mga ilang araw bago ang unang travel namin na magkakasama. Medyo magulo ang isip ko. Hindi ko alam kung okay pa ba kami ni Negro. Naramdaman ko na may malaking distansya na kami sa isa't isa. Laging may mga bagay na hindi namin napag-uusapan ng maayos at parang may mga bagay siyang ikinakahiya sa pamilya ko. Nag-usap kami isang gabi. Gusto ko sanang makipagkita sa pamilya mo. sabi niya habang tahimik kaming naglalakad sa gilid ng kalsada. May kabila ang ilaw mula sa mga kotse, at siya lang ang tingin ko. I think it's time for them to meet me. I don't want to be a stranger in your life anymore. I was silent for a moment, feeling the weight of his words. I had always been afraid of introducing him to my family. What would they think? Will they accept him? He wasn't Filipino. He wasn't part of the life I had known, and my family was strict. But then, I realized that if I was truly serious about him, this was something I had to face. Hindi ko siya pwedeng itago forever. Okay? Sagot ko, I think it's time to. The night before, nagkita kami sa isang resto bar. After dinner, we sat at the bar, and he asked me, "What if they don't like me?" "I'll fight for you," I said without thinking. "I've been fighting for you since the beginning. And no matter what they say, you'll always have me." He smiled, but I could see the doubt still in his eyes. Hindi ko siya mas blame. I too was afraid. But I had to trust. This was our time. We couldn't keep letting fear hold us back. We had to fight for each other. And then, dumating na nga ang araw. Na-meet ko ang pamilya ko at, as expected, naging awkward ang lahat. But at that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for him. I was also fighting for the love I knew was real. The love that had grown between us through everything. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my fears, stand in the way of that. The meeting with my family was a mix of tension and hope. They didn't fully accept him right away, but they also didn't push him away. It was clear they saw the sincerity in his eyes, and they saw how much he cared for me. Slowly but surely, they began to open up. At least, I thought to myself, this was a step in the right direction. After the awkward dinner, when we were finally alone, I could feel the relief in the air. Negro held my hand and said, "I'm glad we did that." "Me too," I said, smiling. "I don't know what will happen next, but I know we're stronger now." "I'll keep fighting for you," he whispered, his voice sincere. "And for us." That night, as we lay next to each other, I realized that love isn't just about the good times or the excitement. It's about building trust, facing your fears, and taking that leap of faith, even when it feels uncertain. With him, I wasn't just falling in love. I was learning to trust again, and to believe that maybe, just maybe, we had something worth holding on to. DJ Serene, sa wakas, natapos. Din, ang lahat ng mga pinagdadaanan namin, mga kabiguan, tanong na walang sagot, at ang mga pangarap na akala ko hindi ko na maaabot. Pero habang tumatagal, na-realize ko na hindi pala tungkol sa mga sagot. Ang love, parang hindi siya kailangang perfect. Basta real siya. Minsan, ang love hindi lang sa magandang moments at sa mga tamang sagot. Love is about accepting each other's flaws. And through everything, yun ang natutunan namin ni Negro. Habang tumatagal, nagiging klaro na hindi lang siya about sa pagmamahal, kundi pati na rin sa mga moments of acceptance, sa mga bagay na hindi mo kayang baguhin, pero tinatanggap mo. Minsan, may mga pagkakataon sa buhay mo na makikilala mo ang isang tao at hindi mo na kayang takasan ang nararamdaman mo. Gusto mo na siyang makasama at gusto mong lumaban para doon sa nararamdaman mong totoo. Hindi na ako natatakot sa nararamdaman ko. Siguro, it took me a while to realize that. Isang gabi naglakad kami sa park. Siya na naman hawak ang kamay ko. Sabi niya, "Do you think we're ready for this? Ready for the next step?" Habang tinitingnan ko siya, naisip ko kung ready nga ba ako. Ready ba ako mag-commit ng buo? Ready ba akong tanggapin na ang relationship na ito ay magdadala ng ibang pagsubok? Pero, sa totoo lang, wala na akong ibang naiisip kundi siya. And I think that was the answer. I think we are. Sagot ko, looking into his eyes. This feels real. I've never felt like this before. Yung sagot ko, hindi lang siya para kay Negro. I was answering the question in my heart. Yung nararamdaman ko sa kanya, walang ibang katulad. And maybe that's what love is all about. Being real, being vulnerable, and letting yourself be with someone who accepts you for who you truly are. Habang nakaupo kami sa ilalim ng puno, pinanood namin yung paglubog ng araw. Hindi ko kayang ipaliwanag ang saya na nararamdaman ko. Wala na akong inaalala. Siguro, sa mga panahon na yon, doon ko natutunan na love doesn't always have to be perfect. Hindi kailangang lahat ng bagay ay ayon sa plano. Basta't kasama mo, yung tao na willing maglakbay sa'yo, ready mag-commit, and ready magbigay ng love sa'yo, yun na yun. Are you sure about this? Tanong niya, looking serious. Yes, sagot ko. I'm sure. We've been through so much, and I know that this is real. In that moment, I realized that I didn't need to have everything figured out. I didn't need to control everything. It wasn't about waiting for the perfect time or the perfect conditions. It was about choosing each other, even when things weren't perfect. Ang mahalaga ay kung paano natin pinipili at tinatanggap ang isa't isa. Pagkatapos naming maglakad-lakad, huminto kami at nagtinginan. Wala nang mga salita na kailangan pang sabihin. It was like the past months, the doubts, the uncertainties. All of that had faded away. Ang mahalaga ay andito kami ngayon. And we were ready to keep going. You know, he said softly, you're not perfect, but neither am I. I smiled, squeezing his hand. Good, I laughed. Because I don't need perfect, I just need you. At yun na nga, sabay kaming naglakad papunta sa kabila ng daan, handa na sa mga susunod na kabanata ng buhay namin. Hindi ko alam kung anong mangyayari sa hinaharap, pero sa ngayon, okay na to. Kasi ang sabi ko sa sarili ko, we're enough. We're exactly where we need to be. Time for the BME.